right to the core. The proof and then the truth of that murder we just saw. Fuck this, there is no justice, and it's a shame because America's above this. But it's really not, cause these cops, they are racist. The very foundation of America is racist. Yeah, we all know it, but nothing ever changes. They part of the system that puts us in cages. Time to break out, every race, all ages. This is not anarchy, this is what changes. You don't have the right to tell me what my pain is, or tell me how to protest, or tell me what my aim is. You the fucking problem, that's where the blame is. Cops killing black people, that's what insane is. Weak politicians, we know what your name is. You can vote while I'm getting choked by a racist. All the actualizations against us are baseless. They falsifying evidence and burying
Hello, everyone. Let me throw some applause out there. Welcome. You know how we do it on the Unfiltered Show. It's going to be no different today. So, welcome. If you do not know me, I am Dr. Devon Morris. I'm here to really disseminate my research and let everybody know who I've been talking about this thing for the past 4 years, right? I just completed my doctorate in pretty much November this year, right? And that study that I really focused in on was really something that I really wanted to do for the community, right? And so I went out to LinkedIn, got a bunch of great stuff, talked to a bunch of groups, and I said, I'm going to disseminate my research and make sure people know just kind of what happened. So, look, if you're around here, as I always do, just make sure you say, just let me know where you're from, what city you're in, state, country, whatever that is, and just make sure you say hi. I'll give an opportunity to say hi at some point a little bit later to everyone who is here. Now, look, I'm going to give you a bunch of information. Some of it may be a little bit more technical or at least more academic. So I just want to make sure that you know that so then there is no surprises here. On that note, I kind of miss doing this. And so I got to get back to the regularly scheduled program. So you know what we are talking about. I'm going to throw it on the screen for you. We are talking about the science of adaptability today. My PhD that broke the playbook, right? That's what we're going to talk about. And so we're going to have a little bit of fun with that. So make sure if you are interested, ask questions. But my main purpose is just to kind of record this so then I can send a link out to the various LinkedIn groups that I got the participants from, and so so people can do this work a little bit later. So that being said, we're gonna jump right into it. Let me go ahead and I'm running the show by myself as usual, so I'm going to just pull all the information together for you, so then you can at least see it. You should be able to see everything that's on my screen and you see the beginning slide here. Just so you know, my research, really the title, focused on something very specific. Let me go over here and change it up for you so you can actually see that. And that title is going to be the impact of team coaching, team resilience, and learning agility on team adaptive performance in validity, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity environments. As you know, my name is Devon Morris. I am the recently minute PhD, and today we're going to give you information about my research. Give you a little bit about the study. My study examined how team coaching predicts team adaptive performance and how it influences team resilience, team goal commitment, and team learning agility. If you really take a look at the theoretical framework, you'll find that it's a combination of conservation of resources theory, social cognitive theory, goal setting theory, and team coaching theory. And I'll show you how I conceptually put those together so then you can at least understand how it looks for me. And then I'll give you all the hypotheses that were tested at that same time. This was a quantitative, non experimental, cross sectional correlational design. We worked with, or at least surveyed, working professionals with at least 3 months of coaching and membership on a team. And one of the most unique things that I utilized during this study was structural equation modeling because of the complexity of what I was doing. Now, if you take a look, you will see my conceptual framework in front of you where you see on the left hand side, you see conservation of resources, you see social cognitive theory, you also see goal settings theory, and then you see right there to the right of it, team coaching theory. Those are the theories that I was focused in that I combined here. I'm looking at team coaching theory as more of a catalyst and activation of the other things based on where the team is at, the maturity of the team, all kinds of things related to that. But then you see a bunch of lines pointing toward the variables. And I had several variables that I was dealing with. If you look at the very bottom, you will see independent variables, and I've color coded that. Mediating variables, color coded that. Let's see, you got the moderating variable, that's color coded, and a dependent variable for those that want to know that. You can see I got team coaching construct. That is more an independent variable. You'll see the mediating variables of team resilience and team goal commitment. You'll see the moderating variable of team learning agility. And then you'll see that dependent variable of team adaptive performance within particularly. I didn't do the between, only focused on the actual within the actual team itself. Now, in terms of the independent variable, that's going to be more ordinal, a moderating variable, ordinal, a mediating variable, ordinal. You're going to find the dependent variable is going to be more ordinal. But just to give you an idea of how I structured this and I kind of grouped things based on the effect. First is the direct effect, and what you will see on the screen is the connection points. So, first and foremost, my first hypothesis focused on team coaching having a significant effect on team adaptive performance. You see that right in the middle? That's probably the main effect that I'm looking for here. And then for the second one, you see team coaching has a significant effect on team learning agility. And then for the third effect, you see team coaching having a significant effect on team resilience. And then for the fourth one, there's going to be team coaching having a significant effect on team goal commitment. And then for the fifth one, you're going to find team learning agility has a significant effect on team adaptive performance. I'm dealing with the other side here to make sure that we deal with all of the effects. So all the direct effects are taken care of. Hypothesis number six that was tested is team resilience has a significant effect on team adaptive performance. And just to round things out, we got number seven here that is team goal commitment has a significant effect on team adaptive performance. Also, remember the mediating variables there because there was a mediating effect, and we have two items here. The first one is going to be my H8, which is going to be team resilience mediates the relationship between team coaching and team adaptive performance. And then for H9, you will see team goal commitment, the other mediating variable, mediating the relationship between team coaching and team adaptive performance. We also have a moderating effect. You see that up top, going down to the main branch there, and that is going to be H10. That's going to be team learning agility, moderates the relationship between team coaching and team adaptive performance. And then last but not least, we have two other effects that we have to worry about, and they are the moderated mediation effects. And the first one, H11, is going to be team learning agility, moderates the indirect effect from team coaching on team adaptive performance through team resilience. And then H12 is going to be similar because it's going to go team learning agility, moderates the indirect effect of team coaching on team adaptive performance through team goal commitment. These were the hypothesis that I tested. I'm going to show you the results, but let me give you more information about what happened throughout the study. First and foremost, we had to grab us some participants. Based on the me doing Monte Carlo simulations and looking at all kinds of studies, I realized that the smallest sample size that I needed to secure was 250 people. I was able to secure 291. Okay. Which makes things, which gives me the right statistical power for medium effects and an alpha level of 0.05, at least for SEM analysis. In terms of my response rate, it turned out really well because according to the literature, I needed about a 44.1% response rate. I got a 45.3, so that was good. I couldn't use the classic G power in terms of this because it just wasn't going to work. At least the studies that I looked at said that G power wasn't going to be helpful in terms of this. Now, I just gave you a lot of information. I've kind of jumped ahead here, but let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. For so what happened in terms of me gathering data, and I really jumped ahead, so my apologies. I went out to LinkedIn to grab my participants. I used LinkedIn groups. I find that LinkedIn is the place where there is a ton of professionals, right? And realistically, of the groups that I grabbed, maybe it was about 15 groups that I really asked, could I actually place my survey? Those groups contained about 4,600,000 people. So really, I was able to get over 4 days, 642 responses. 351 of them were disqualified. That led to my response rate of 45.3%. And then it broke down certain ways where I only ended up with really the 291 people that could actually that I actually pulled into the survey. One of the biggest reasons why people were excluded from the survey was poor quality responses. That's probably the largest reason why people were, gotten rid of. For example, the speeding or straight lining were problems that I saw. So I just wanted to get past those things. Well, here's the deal. For me, I did structural equation modeling, which is done in two real steps or two phases. The first one is about really phase one, which is going to be the data preparation, and phase two, which is going to be SEM implementation. This is really to analyze the proposed relationships among the study variables. Using structural equation modeling allowed for simultaneous testing of those multiple pathways along with the indirect effects within a single model. So that's the reason why I use structural equation modeling. For that preparation data, exploratory factor analysis helped to confirm most of the items loaded. I had to get rid of some items within there because there were some items that didn't quite meet the criteria that they needed to. But there was really no substantial issues, no multicollinearity issues, no common method variance detected amongst the variables. These are things that we saw. When we went on to phase two, in terms of conducting the SEM across those two stages, we had to do about 5,000 resamples. In terms of stage one, we did CFA, the measurement model that was tested to establish unidimensionality, reliability, and validity across all constructs. In stage two, structural model was developed and evaluated the hypothesized direct, mediating, moderating, and moderated mediation effects. That's what we saw in terms of the latent variables. This two-step process is classic for structural equation modeling, and it really allowed me to take a look at all the variables through one model. Now, if I take a look at this a little bit more, in order to establish factorial validity of the measurement instruments, I conducted an EFA, which is a exploratory factor analysis for each latent construct using principal component analysis. The purpose of this step was to ensure that all observed items accurately represented their intended constructs, minimizing any measurement area. So you'll see some classic things like the KMO, Bartlett's test of sphericity. All the values exceeded the recommended 0.60 except for team resilience. The thing about team resilience that was interesting is that the survey that I used was a short survey, which was really two items within that survey. And so I believe because of the items, it didn't reach the threshold, but that was okay. And it was really something that was important to my model. So we decided to keep it. Then we saw at least Bartlett's test was significant across all constructs. The KMO, well, I use Kaiser criterion. The eigenvalues, they were greater than 1.0. We use ski plots and a 60% minimum threshold, like point 0.5. And in terms of loading factors, there was no problematic cross loading. We made sure we ensured convergent validity. And again, for the KMO for team resilience, that was at point 0.5. But again, as I said earlier, we decided to keep it. When I looked at the original data, at least the original study that we pulled that from, that that instrument, you found strong values in terms of the scale being loaded. In terms of 81% of our variance was accounted for in this factor, demonstrating excellent convergent validity despite the smaller item pool. In the future, I probably would use the other survey that was actually recommended, but I tried to limit the amount of questions there was going to be. So across all constructs, team coaching, team learning agility, team resilience, and team goal commitment, along with team adaptive performance, the retained items showed strong factor loading, high commonalities, interfactor correlations below 0.70, confirming both convergent and discriminant validity. When you look at team coaching and team learning agility, each one of those actually had an item that was removed. One of the things that I really want to point out here is for the survey that I used in terms of team learning agility, it was really a survey that was based on individual perspectives, their perceptions. And so in order to account for it, I used a referent shift approach, which really allowed me to aggregate the individual perception. It allowed me to get an idea, or at least for people to get a perspective of what the team was doing. So the original survey talked about the I perspective when I needed for them to think from a we perspective. So we did a reference shift and performed a EFA on that to make sure that it met all the things that it needed to meet, and it was also suitable for structural equation modeling. In the very first stage, SEM, I assessed the measurement model using CFA to verify each construct was measured reliably and validly. One of the things that I learned, which was interesting, is that I was going to I had to use Smart PLS 4.0 because the using Amos did not work. Now, some of you all don't know what I'm talking about, but these are tools that help you perform these measurements. So using Amos, it helped me examine the strength of the relationships between a latent and their observed indicators. So all factor loadings exceeded 0.70, and the reliability coefficients, Cronbach alpha, composite reliability, the average variance extracted were all above the recommended thresholds. This confirms that each construct demonstrated strong internal and convergent validity. In terms of discriminant validity, in multicollinearity, this was the next thing that I had to perform. And I was ensuring that the constructs were empirically distinct. The cross-loading, the Fresnel-Lacker criterion, the heterotrait, monotrait ratios all supported this, with the HTMT values ranging from 0.74 to 0.846, which were all pretty much, they were below the actual cutoff. Also had to test out multicollinearity across all constructs. All tolerances, all values are greater than the 0.10, with VIF values, they were below the 4, confirming that there was moderate acceptability and no multicollinearity concerns. Overall, the model demonstrated excellent reliability, convergent validity, and discriminant validity, establishing a solid foundation for proceeding to stage 2, the actual structural model analysis. Now, in terms of phase 2, I decided to do something really important. Now, I'm going to let you all know this is my first time doing this, right? So just work with me here. But again, I had a bunch of doctors supporting me, so this was amazing during this time. So what I decided to do here to make things easier for myself is I decided to group the test based on the effects. So, and then I can make it easier for me to test as well as easier for me to communicate. So you will see that the direct effects are H1 through H7. The mediation effects are H8 and 9. The moderation effect is H10. And the moderated mediation effect is going to be H11 and 12. Let's talk through each one of these so I can give you an idea. Spoiler alert, probably the main one that I was really mostly concerned about was team coaching's effect on team adaptive performance in VUCA environments. Immediately I'm looking for the p value here, which shows significance, right? So team coaching was a direct positive predictor of actual team adaptive performance in VUCA environments. And you can see a few things here, which is important. For example, T value above 3.29 threshold is evidence of a really robust relationship. Effect size was above 0.15 but below 3.5, which really showed a medium effect. When it came to VIF, or the variance inflation factor, that was below 0.30 threshold, indicating no multiclinearity. So we're looking really good here. Just to give you some ideas of what you see here, that beta is the standardized path coefficient. That's a statistical estimate used in structural equation modeling, SEM, and a regression analysis. It represents the strength and direction of the relationship between two variables after you standardize their scales. Okay. So that's what that beta is about. T statistic, or the T value, measures how many standard errors your estimated path coefficient, or the beta, is away from zero. Really, it just tells you whether your relationship is statistically significant or likely due to random chance. Okay. And there's some rules around, what those numbers can be. If you want to know some of that, that's deeper in a dissertation. In terms of practical significance, we're looking at effect size, which is about how much impact one variable actually has on another within the model, beyond just proving that a relationship exists. So realistically, there are guidelines for that as well. In terms of VIF, that qualifies how much the variance of a regression coefficient is inflated due to collinearity amongst the predictor variables, right? So that's something that we were looking at as well. These are things that you see. So when you see the beta, you see the T there, you see the P value, the CI is coefficient index, the F with the square there is going to be effect size, and VIF is going to be that variance inflation factor. So just want to give you that information. If you are, an academic, you probably know exactly what many of these things are, but I just wanted to throw it out there for everyone here. I'm going to move on to the next one here. In terms of the second hypothesis that was tested, this team coaching predicts learning agility with in VUCA environments. This was supported, right? Showing that there's a direct positive predictor of team learning agility. Okay. And you can see all the factors there. I'm not going to explain them. I just want to show them to you so we can save a little bit of time here. You take a look at the third effect here. You're talking about team coaching was a direct, again, positive predictor of team resilience. This was supported as well. Next, in terms of our direct effect, you get our fourth hypothesis, which shows that team coaching was a direct, again, positive predictor of team goal commitment. Okay, so that's another one. And we switch up a little bit now, and we jump to the other side of the effects that I was showing you. So in this case, team learning agility was a direct positive predictor of team adaptive performance. That was supported. That had a significant p value. Let's see. We got number 6 here. Team resilience was a positive predictor of team adaptive performance as well. This was significant as well. So it was supported. And then you have our seventh one, which was supported as well, which is team goal commitment being a direct positive predictor of team adaptive performance in VUCA environments. Again, you can look at all the numbers here, but all these items are actually supported. So that's an amazing thing. So really, H1 through H7 are direct effects. All were significant, every single one of them. So that was really positive, an amazing way to start the study out for me. So I was very, very happy in terms of that. Now, as we start to look into other things, now we're going to deal with our mediating, right? And this is the actual chart that I use for mediating variables. If you look here, there's a nice diagram here. I've given a source here so people can get to it, but this can help you map through it. And if you look at what happens with my study, is that my study showed that both H8 and H9 are going to be partially mediated, which means they're both significant. They both were supported. And the way you can see this is if you look here at A was significant. B was significant, C was significant, and you see the C with that A with apostrophe was also significant, showing partial mediation. So you will see this in H8, where everything here is significant. All I pass. You got A, you got B, you got C, and you got A apostrophe, right? They show very strong evidence or highly significant across everything here. So this was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed this. Now, in terms of 9, you get the same thing. You get A, B, C, and the A apostrophe. You get all that being significant, which shows that this was supported as well. So here's the deal. When it comes to H8, that was team resilience mediating the relationship between team coaching and team adaptive performance. So it's mediating that relationship. And then also, team goal commitment is mediating the relationship between team coaching and team adaptive performance. That was a really nice thing to see here because it shows you the importance of team goal commitment and team resilience in terms of how teams operate within this adaptable, in this world where they got to adapt to changes. Now, we're going to switch up here because now we got a moderation effect, which is going to be H10. H10 really was the team learning agility. This was the unique one that always that I had to really do to switch up the EFA to reference shift on. And this states that there's a moderation. It moderates the relationship of team coaching and team adaptive performance. This right here was significant, but slightly, right? It slightly moderated the relationship. So there wasn't this big shift. And ultimately, there's a really paradoxical relationship here because the higher your team's maturity, the higher the learning agility, it just I'll show you later. It just showed an interesting impact. So we will talk about that more later because I'm kind of jumping ahead because I'm excited. Now, that being said, so our moderation effect was significant. H11. All right. Here's where we get to things that are not supported. One of the things that I really wanted to test and figure out was the moderated mediation effect. And this is an indirect effect that team learning agility is having on team resilience and its impact through team coaching on team adaptive performance. This was an interesting one because what I found was something that really kind of caught my attention. The strength of the effect that team coaching, team resilience actually remained constant regardless of the level of team learning agility. If you take a look, you see high, medium, and low. So regardless of the strength of team learning agility, team resilience did not change. It just did not change whatsoever. This really suggested that team resilience served as a real stable and robust mediating mechanism linking coaching and adaptive performance, regardless of the actual team learning agility. So this is where it starts to get interesting, right? Because I was really expecting it to have an impact across the board. I was expecting to have an indirect effect on this, and it did not. It just remained stable in terms of team resilience. So, in essence, when learning agility, although it may enhance a team's overall adaptability, it did not amplify or weaken the extent to which resilience transmitted the benefits of coaching to performance outcomes. Okay, so that was where I started seeing this paradoxical relationship. So this was a little bit exciting for me to see. It was a little bit exciting for me to see. Now, let's talk about something different here. Let's go over to the next one. And this one right here is going to be the team learning agility. And I'm dealing with the indirect effect here on team goal commitment. So realistically, the indirect effect of team coaching on team adaptive performance through team goal commitment. Now, this one right here did not show that same stability, right? As you kind of ratchet or change the strength of the effect, it varies slightly depending on the level of learning agility. This suggests something a little bit different, that goal commitment was mostly stable and mostly a robust mechanism that became more pronounced at lower levels of learning agility, team learning agility, but was statistically insignificant across all levels. This demonstrates that although insignificant, there was some interaction between goal commitment and learning agility that indirectly contributed to the relationship between coaching and adaptive performance. So, in essence, lower levels of learning agility amplified the extent to which commitment transmitted its benefits of coaching to adaptive performance. This is the reason why I started talking about the paradoxical relationship, because I took a deeper dive into team learning agility, and it's just one of those things that was quite interesting. Now, that really is my overall, at least outcomes for the study. I will tell you a couple other things so we can make sure that we round the bases here. First and foremost, there is some limitations, right? In terms of methodological limitations, this was a non-experimental cross-sectional correlational design. I wasn't manipulating any variables. I wasn't doing anything like that. The relationships were observed, as stated, not manipulated. And again, these were self-reported surveys that were given out. So just know that. We probably can make this more robust in the future. These limitations are typical of correlational studies, and they highlight opportunities for future studies to apply longitudinal experimental designs that can build on this and test these associations over time. But these associations do provide some direction. In terms of sampling and generalizability, here's the deal. This study utilized a non-probability purposive sampling approach, recruiting participants through LinkedIn and professional networks. It allowed us to access working professionals with relevant team experience, but it limited the representativeness of the broader workforce. Okay, and I got a bunch of good responses, but again, there are some limitations there. The final sample size of 291 people was just composed of individuals. Classically, most of those individuals were in knowledge based industries, technology, finance, healthcare. As a result, the findings may not fully capture team dynamics in places like manufacturing, the military, public service. And then the survey was voluntary. There is a possibility of self-selection bias where individuals who were more motivated, engaged positively, that have positive thoughts on teamwork or coaching may represent more people. Plus, with me being a certified Scrum trainer, with me being out there, I have over 9,000 LinkedIn followers. There could be some things associated with that. So I want to put that out there. These factors suggest while the results are meaningful, I think that theoretically robust, generalizability should be cautiously applied. And you got to make sure that you're dealing with similar contexts here. So I just want to make sure that that's out there. In terms of measurements, one of the things I would say is that I had a limitation with team learning agility. There was no surveys that existed. Now, understand that I had to adapt it and introduce minor differences in terms of interpretations. I had to have people think to what their team is doing, not just what is individually happening themselves. And although everything was psychometrically sound, that is a concern. The cross-sectional design is another concern as well, because I'm taking data at a single point in time. That's what I'm doing. In terms of examining coaching, resilience, learning agility over time as teams mature at different stages of a team's life cycle, that might be helpful. Also, external factors, team performance. There were several things I didn't measure, right? So you think about things like the organizational culture, leadership climate, the use of digital collaboration tools. These were not controlled for whatsoever. I couldn't control for those things, right? So these contextual variables may influence how teams experienced and responded to coaching. Together, these constraints define the study's boundaries and highlight opportunities for future longitudinal and multi level research to expand on these findings. Now, in light of these limitations, right, the findings for this study should be interpreted as indicative, not a definitive causal pathways for team coaching, team resilience, adaptive performance, even team goal commitment, right? Because of the study's cross-sectional correlational design, this is a point in time, right? The associations are meaningful, but they do not establish direct causality, right? Now, to strengthen these inferences, future research, again, as stated, different experimental designs, longitudinal designs could be helpful. The Let's see, what else do I need to tell you? Let's see, recommendations for the future. One of the biggest things that I would recommend for the future is while this study, while individual learning agility has been conceptualized and measured in prior studies, there is no current validated instruments that captures the construct of learning agility at a team level, academically or commercially. And there's a lot of commercial ones that exist, right? But they don't capture. Most of them are team based. So I definitely would encourage the development of that for the future. I also would encourage the development of some VUCA density index, something that really helps to understand one, a contextual moderator of the relationship, right? Because environments are different. And how do I know how much change is happening in the environment? I didn't know that in terms of this study whatsoever. That would have been a nice thing to know and have established, right? Let's see. Another thing that I would do in terms of helping with generalizability would be to work with intact bounded teams so we can really get the team's perspective, especially if we have multiple teams that kind of work together to some degree. We can do within those teams and between teams and get, I believe, a better perspective, especially if we're doing longitudinal experimental studies. Cross cultural samples would also be important because different places on the planet operate different based on their cultures, based on their environment. So these would be things that I would kind of look at in the future. Let's see. I want to lead a social change option there, but again, I really do think that these findings have an impact at the individual, organizational, and societal levels. In terms of individual, team coaching can enhance psychological safety, collective efficacy, shared purpose. At the organizational level, these things can help strengthen team resilience, learning, adaptability, allowing organizations to maintain performance and innovation, especially when all this change is happening. And you know how disruptive things are now. And I believe at a societal level, when we think about resilience, learning, agile, adaptable workforces can help build healthier organizational cultures, leading people to have healthier lives overall. So, realistically, if I go ahead and just finalize this thing for you, I would say that team coaching is a strategic driver, literally, of adaptive performance, right? This study reinforces that team coaching is that driver, by answering many of the questions that I had in my professional life. And these are experiences that I was having on the ground because I have a couple of decades in terms of operating on agile scrum teams that have always been dealing in changing environments, especially when you start talking about most of my time's been spent in IT where things have always been disruptive and changing. And through, I think, structured intentional coaching, teams can actually develop resilience. They can also develop learning agility and goal commitment. These three core capacities help to enable them not to just survive, but to truly thrive when they're in these disruptive environments. These qualities allow teams to remain focused, resourceful, and aligned even when the environment around them is unpredictable and rapidly changing. Ultimately, the research bridges the gap between academic theory and real world organizational practice. It demonstrates how evidence based coaching models can transform teams into adaptive systems capable of sustained performance and innovation. In essence, what I'm saying to you is team coaching is more than just a leadership tool. It's a catalyst for resilience, learning, and collective growth in our modern world. Now, that is what my dissertation was all about. I'm going to go ahead and just flash through the actual references here. So, and then they're shown on a video and within the screen. So you at least can see where, at least for this, all that study stuff came from. Other than that, I am going to thank everyone who is here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This was a crazy journey for me. I am going to go ahead and at least show you me so you can see me. This was a crazy journey for me, right? I was nervous in the beginning because this is the first time I've operated this stuff, but I'm trying to run this and give you the research results at the same time, which is a little bit tough. But some of you all, several of you, have been on this journey with me for the 4 years. I started this journey in November of 2021. And one of the biggest reasons why I started this journey was because of you, right? There, being a certified Scrum trainer has allowed me to certify almost 10,000 certified professionals, and train way more than that, right? But in terms of certifications, it's about 10,000 I've been able to certify. And you have all these people coming through class and they have similar questions. They have similar questions. And then when it comes to leaders, they want to know whether the stuff really, really works or not. They really want to know whether it works or not, which becomes one of those things that it became harder and harder for me to prove because most people just had anecdotes. They just had information that just wasn't, really helping to provide any relevant information about what what were the things that could help be successful in the real world. Not to mention, I've been a coach on the ground. I've been a scrum master, a software developer, a product owner, a project manager, and many, many other things within the workforce. And working on teams that constantly have changes happening, especially when you're in that cutting edge dealing in IT, has always been an interesting thing. But the thing that was common is there was always change. And I've always been curious about how change impacted everything as we were kind of moving forward, trying to do things and deal with whatever it is that we were trying to go through. And I always had questions. And then in 2021, I got really frustrated because I really wanted to know what adaptability, what it took, what are some of the things that we can do to help teams develop more resilience, more, as I know now, learning agility, be better commitment, be more committed to the actual goals. And those were questions that I was able to personally answer through my PhD journey. So in becoming a doctor, I spent all of my time trying to study teams and what mechanisms help teams to really thrive. And it culminated in a 250 to 300 page dissertation, probably 200 references, right? 12 research questions, as I showed you earlier. It really, really put me in a place where I was really trying to get the answers to the questions that I had. And if I was able to get the questions to the answers that I had, then it would give me more confidence to be able to answer more people's questions and figure out how can I take this academic and practical world and kind of pull them together. I really wanted to become a scholarly practitioner, someone who has been doing this work already but I needed to add scholarship to it. And this allowed me to do that. And many of you all out there helped me in some kind of way, was on this journey, or you're on a similar journey, maybe not to become a PhD, but solving problems. Um, and this is just something, a coin that I'm putting out there in the hat for my fellow scholars, for my fellow practitioners, for us that just really want to do really good, just do a good job at what we do. And that's what I really wanted to do here. So nothing to brag. I will take this video and give it, make sure it's provided to the people who actually, the groups, especially that I went to. This will be the way that I will disseminate the information. First time I'm really doing this, so thank you, and thank you for dealing with me through my little hiccups in terms of trying to drive and talk, and make sure everything is showing to you at the same time. A lot of stuff going on here, but you know, hopefully it became more seamless for you. Other than that, if you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. There are multiple ways you can reach out to me through LinkedIn. You can reach out to me through YouTube. This video will be available in both places, just for people to actually have access to more than anything else. So that being said, let's see. Let me double check and see if I got anything going on here that is any questions. I don't see any questions. That was a lot of information. That was a whole lot of information. LinkedIn is over here behind, way behind. So I'm gonna really double check this one more time. And so if you had any questions, anything like that, you're welcome to drop them in the chat or whatever it is. I'll do my best to answer them. But hopefully most of your questions were answered from the information that I presented. I'm gonna tell you something. I had the most fun doing this. I had the most fun doing this. I haven't had the ability in an educational environment to control my outcomes, like to have such control over what I was interested in and my outcomes. This right here was a pleasure beyond belief. Just literally, really, really a huge pleasure beyond belief. And I really, really enjoyed diving into this study. It was just really, really nice to see that I had basically 10 research questions that was significant, and two of them that I couldn't reject a no. Right. I really liked that. Right. I liked that there was a couple of them that didn't work out for me. Not that I was extra committed. I just was interested in seeing what the data showed and letting the data guide me, and doing everything that I could to remove any bias that I would have on the information. So, I am very proud of this step in a direction. I am, really, really humbled by the journey, because it is not one for the lighthearted. Um, Today, I actually got got official word of conferral. I officially graduate in January, so it's gonna be a celebration, a little small celebration. I actually, went ahead and had my book printed, bound it. Not the book. I say my book. It's not a book, man. I had the dissertation bound, right? So I'm very proud of having this bound. And it looks really good. I really like it, right? So it's something that will be on the shelf for the future. I won't pull it out that much because I got an electronic copy. So I'm probably not gonna pull that out very much. If I was back in the day when they was using punch cards and things of that nature, it might be different. But that being said, this again once again was an amazing, absolutely superb journey, and I could not ask for anything more than that. I think a lot of people have. I think a lot of people a lot of people was on this journey with me. Like a lot of people, in terms of all these environments, were on this. And so, what does this mean? What does it mean for the future of things? So you all know. It means that I'm going to change the Unfiltered show to start talking about more current events within team effectiveness, adaptability, learning agility, resilience. You probably noticed that I put out weekly long form video and several shorts. Lots of shorts each week. Probably one a day for the past month. Just because this has been something I've been very interested in. I could either record some more and put some more out there for you. I just wanted to it's been an interesting past 2 weeks. Let's put it that way. So yeah, so this was an enjoyable journey. And I think, I told myself I wouldn't take the entire hour, but I took a long enough time and I didn't even go through every, but I went through a lot. I just wanted to make sure you had more than enough information. So that being said, I don't see any big questions that have come across. I don't see any small questions that have come across. You know, I'm just double checking here. I'm actually pretty good, pretty satisfied here. So on that note, this is all recorded. It's all available for you to look at any time. So I'm going to end this live now and then just start scheduling stuff in the future for us to do. So look out for 2026. You'll see more of these lives coming where I'll answer your questions more, talking about current events. We will do a lot of that stuff moving forward and current events related to these topics. I'm not about to talk about politics and anything like that. That's not what I do. So other than that, I'm going to say, thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who has had some level of involvement in this. I'm very proud in terms of this first presentation to the general audience here. Yeah, you got a few ums and uhs there. I'm over here trying to think through three things at the same time, but I'll figure out how to get this environment to work well for me. It's been different because I've just set everything up brand new this week. So on that note, look, it's been a pleasure. You all have an amazing rest of the week. I will see you. I will see you on the journey as we go through all this adaptability together, and have one of the most amazing times. I'll see you all soon. Have a good one. Peace.